World History Discussions, Chapter 4, Part 3, the Indo Aryan Migrations. I wanted to mention that I closed the last video by talking about the downfall of Harappa Mohenjo-Daro and the Indus Valley Society. It's actually likely that they destroyed themselves. All the cutting of trees probably led to desertification, and that ended being able to grow crops in the Indus Valley. In fact, to this day, agriculture in that part of Pakistan is only doable through artificial irrigation by modern means. So that very well could have ended the society. Also, earthquakes and devastating floods probably heightened the pace. What didn't end them was the Indo Aryan migrations, because by 1500 BCE, when the first Indo Aryans were migrating over the Hindu Kush into the Indus Valley civilization was already long gone. Now, it's interesting is that the Indo Aryans considered themselves to be noble people. That was what the word Aryan meant, and this is no connection at all with Hitler and the Aryan race. That was much later and also based on some Aryanist racial views. But anyway, these migrations probably took several centuries and was not a military campaign. What's interesting, though, is that they did clash with the local native people. The earliest Indo-Aryans had no writing. Also interesting because, as I mentioned, Harappa Mohenjo-Daro, which preceded them, did have writing. It's just undeciphered. But the Indo-Aryans rode in on horses with horse-drawn chariots, and they were devastating war machines. Horses, though, don't breed that well in the tropical climate of India, and as a result, they were very prized because they generally had to be imported from Central Asia. And cattle were also prized for dairy and meat. You don't get vegetarian culture until much later. Towards the end of this chapter, we get to around 500 BCE and early Hinduism. That's when you finally start seeing vegetarianism as a result of belief in reincarnation. So the main era that we're going to be studying in this chapter is the Vedic Age, which lasts for about 1,000 years, from 1500 to 500 BCE, coinciding with these Indo-Aryan migrations. And the Vedas reveal a society of war between the Indo-Aryans and the Dravidian people. Aryans actually referred to the locals as dasas, meaning enemies or subject people. However, there were also friendly relations, and no doubt about it, Dravidians and Aryans often traded and intermarried. Indo-Aryans also fought among themselves as they were organized into hundreds of chiefdoms, or with a raja, which was Sanskrit for king. There was Sanskrit writing, which was the sacred language of the Vedas, although it wasn't written down until about 600 BCE. And then there was Prakrit, which was the more day-to-day language. And many languages in India, especially northern India today, such as Hindi, are direct descendants of Prakrit. Well, around the year 1000 BCE, the Indo-Aryans made it from the Indus Valley over to the Ganges Valley. And they also started making use of iron tools to clear the forests and build agriculture. It was around then they started growing rice rather than wheat and barley. Rice provided food for expanding society, and by 750 BCE, the Indo-Aryans had the first small cities of the Ganges Valley. Population in the Ganges by 500 BCE was so dense that some Indo-Aryans pushed even further south to the Deccan Plateau in the southern part of India, which is 950 miles south of the Punjab. But between 1000 and 500 BCE, the Indo-Aryans gradually lost a lot of their tribal organizations, and this would even affect their religion. None of the tribal organizations of the Indo-Aryans, however, embraced nearly as much territory as the Indus Valley did.